Hey guys, in this video I'll walk you through how to get access to MCP servers on n8n step by step. And for this we'll have to self-host n8n, as that's the only way we can use community nodes. And since MCP server is currently only available as one, self-hosting is the way to go. And we will be locally hosting it on our computer using Docker, which is completely free. So by the end of this video you'll have n8n locally installed and running on your computer, and you'll also have access to MCP servers. By the way, I added the timestamps for each of the steps here, so feel free to skip to the part of the video that is relevant to you. For example, if you already have n8n locally installed, you can just start from step 4 and go from there. You can also find all the links and resources for each of the steps here in the video description so that you can easily follow along. And with that said, I'm going to stop wasting time and get right to it, where we'll start with our prerequisites, right? We'll have to install Git and Docker. So for step 1, we'll go with installing Git. To put it simply, Git is what we are going to use to clone the repository from GitHub that contains the n8n application to our computer, which we'll see in a bit. But for this, I'm gonna head over to the link here, right? And like I said, you can find this link in the video description so that you can follow along with me. And in my case, I'm a Windows user. If you are a Mac user, you can just go ahead and click on Mac build and follow the instructions here. But in my case, I'm going to continue with clicking on download for Windows, which by the way, this might be automatically displayed based on our operating system. So maybe in your case, if you're a Mac user, you might see download for Mac here instead, right? Anyway, I'll just go ahead with clicking on download for Windows and then click on click here to download, and I'll see you guys once it's downloaded. All right, so now the download is complete. We'll just simply execute the executable, right? I'm gonna click on yes, and I will just proceed with the installation process, right? It's gonna add into the C program files Git repository. I'm gonna click on next. In my case, I already have a folder as I already had it installed prior to this, but since I'm reinstalling it, apparently I didn't delete the whole thing. So I'm just gonna click on next, next again, and then next again, next. Just continue clicking on next, pretty much just next all the way through, guys. Next, next, and finally we have an install button here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and click on it and wait for it to install. So I'll see you once it's done. All right guys, the installation is complete, and with that we are already done with step 1. So now we can continue with step 2. I'm just gonna close this. All right, so for step 2, we are going to download and install Docker. For those of you who are wondering, we are going to use Docker to host the application that we are going to clone from GitHub in an isolated environment and give it everything it needs in order to host the application, right? And for this, we are gonna head over to this link here. I'm gonna go there, and now here we are. So if we hovered over the download Docker desktop button, we'll see these options appear, right? You'll have to select the option that suits you. In my case, I'll just go ahead and click on download for Windows, and I'll see you guys once it's ready. All right, so the download is complete. I'm just gonna go ahead and run this file here and start the installation process for Docker. All right, so then we click on OK, right? And wait for it to unpack the files. All right, still waiting. This might take a while. All right, guys, with that, we also have Docker installed, which is super easy, right? I'm just gonna go ahead and close this, and to set it up, I'm just gonna go run Docker desktop. And once we run that, we'll see this thing here appear, right? I'm just gonna go ahead and click on accept, and here you can either create an account for yourself or you can just actually skip it. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna also skip this, and once we do that, guys, the Docker engine is going to start. Like I said, this is what we're going to use to host our n8n application in an isolated environment. You can think of it like a lightweight version of a virtual machine. But anyway, with this, we have Docker ready, and we can finally continue with step 3, and that is to clone the n8n repository and start hosting it on Docker. So I'm just gonna go and close these 2 windows here we had for the previous steps, right? And then I'm gonna open a new one and paste in this link. Again, you can get this from the description. And here we are. As you can see, it says self-hosted AI starter kit. It's basically what n8n provides us to streamline the process of hosting it ourselves, right? And the best part about this is this also comes with like bonus inclusions, such as being able to run local models using Ollama, vector databases using Quadrant, PostgreSQL for database. So these are all going to run locally. So it's going to be completely free, right? And it's going to be automatically installed as part of this process, even though this is beyond the scope of this video. So we are not going to be touching on any of these, but I thought it would be good for me to let you guys know. And you can see that we have an installation section, right, where there are different ways to install this or clone this to our computer. You can see for NVIDIA GPU users, and then you have AMD GPU users on Linux, and then for Mac users, right? And then finally, we have for everyone else that does not fit into any of these categories above. In my case, I'm an NVIDIA GPU user on Windows, but I'm gonna follow with for everyone else here, because if I wanted to go with this, what I had to do is I had to also follow an additional instruction, and this is only gonna benefit me if I were to run an LLM model locally, right? And since this is not the point of the video, I'm not gonna go with that, and instead I'm gonna be following the for everyone else way of actually cloning this. Again, if you want to go with that, you can follow this instruction here, and if you are a Mac user, you can follow this instruction here. It's pretty much the same, by the way. If you notice, look at this, the first two lines are exactly the same. The only thing that's going to be different is our Docker compose method, right? Because for each operating system, they have a different way of running the Docker container. The first thing we want to do is we want to go and copy this line here that says git clone, right? And then go to your command line, and I'm just gonna go ahead and paste this command here. And when, oops, sorry guys, apparently I already have this installed in that directory, so I'm just gonna go ahead and delete that first and come back. All right, so I just finished deleting it. Apparently I forgot to delete it before I started this video. Like I said, I already had it installed previously, right? I'm just gonna go ahead and run this command one more time, and what this is going to do is it's going to start cloning this repository we have here that's provided to us by n8n, and you can see how quick it's able to actually do that. Now what we can do is we can actually cd into it, and cd, I'm not sure what the opening for it is for, but it is a command to help us go to a particular directory. If I did cd from here and straight away wrote the name of the directory we want to go in, we'll be able to do that exactly. And right now you can see that we are actually within this directory in the command line, and if you wanted to open this, which we are, we can just do start and at a full stop. What that's going to do is it's going to open the directory for us visually, right? And now we can see that we are inside that. We have the repository cloned to our computer, and what we are interested in right now is with this Docker compose file. And for this, you can go ahead and right click and just open it with your a standard notepad. And once we are here, look for x-n8n, and then inside that we have environment. Right here, what we are going to do is this is where we set environment variables, and we'll have to set this one here in order for the application to allow us use community nodes. As you can see, that's what the name here implies anyway. n8n community packages allow tool usage is set to true. And again, this too will be in the description, right? You can just copy and paste this command here. And for those of you who already had n8n locally hosted, but you don't have this set to true, you'll also have to complete this step. Otherwise, you won't be able to use the MCP server node, right? Once you do that, you will also have to run this command here. Again, I'm going to actually add this to the description so you can just follow. This is going to restart your Docker container to apply the changes you made to this environment variable. But for those of you who's been following since step one, you don't have to do this step, right? And with this out of the way, we are ready to spin up the app in Docker. So let's do just that. Let's go back to the GitHub repository for this, right? And scroll back all the way down to where we were at. So you're at this for everyone else section. We already cloned the Git repository, and then as you can see, we did this part as well, right? Cd'd into this directory. And finally, the only thing we'll have to do now is to compose or run this application in Docker, like we just said. And for that, we'll just copy this command and go back to our CMD or CLI, right? And you can see that we are in this directory, and this will only work in the same directory. So make sure that you are there. If you are not sure how to do it, you can also go to the UI and then right click on it and click on open in terminal. What it's going to do is it's going to do the same thing as it's going to start the terminal within the same directory here. And we can just do that here as well. And that's what I'm actually going to do. And with this, I'm going to click on enter, and it's going to start setting up Docker for us. And remember that you have to get the Docker up and running, right? Not only installing it, but also the process where we set up after installing. because we need the Docker engine to run for this part to work. But anyway, this is going to take some time, so I'll just see you guys once it's done. All right guys, with this process complete, we officially have n8n running locally. Let's go ahead and close this now and take a look at the Docker app and see how it looks like. Right here, when we go to the containers section, I'm just going to go expand this window here, right? So this is the container, or containers in this case, that's running our starter kit. And you can see the other things here that is included running as well, like Ollama, Quadrant, and PostgreSQL, which two are running locally, as I mentioned earlier, right? And when we go to n8n, we can see this thing here saying 5678. This is the port binding. Since we are running this application in an isolated environment, we are actually binding the port within that environment to the port in our computer, so that now what we can do is we can go to localhost 5678 in the browser and actually get access to this n8n instance. Let's actually try that. Usually I was able to just click on this, but apparently that's not available right now. Like the one we see here, if we click on this, it's a hyperlink, so it will take us to that page, right? But it's okay. I'm just going to go back to the browser and then manually type in localhost 5678, which I already have from my previous attempts, right? I'm going to click on enter and it's going to direct us. All right guys, so apparently the containers stopped running, so I'm just going to restart it. And also that's the reason why we weren't able to see this hyperlink here, right? And now let's actually just stop the whole container, right? This thing is the main container here, and I'm gonna just go ahead and click on start again. This should start the whole system for us, and that's what it's doing right now. It's starting n8n as well. And once this is up, we should be able to see this hyperlink this time, and we can just click that to get to the website. And there we go guys, this time it is running. At least we were able to see how to restart the application or start the application ourselves as well, right? So I'm going to click on this now, and this should take us to the website. And as you can see here, we'll have to create an owner account, and this is not the one we have in the cloud application, since again this is running locally and the database itself is locally being hosted in our computer, right? In this case in Docker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create an account, and then I'm gonna say Mahmoud and small my name, surname, and I'm gonna say Mahmoud123. I want to receive security and product updates. Just click on next. When we do that, now we are logged into the website and we can see a demo workflow here that's created for us that has a simple LLM chain with an Ollama model. But of course, it's not of our interest now, so I'm just going to delete this. And with this, by the way, we have step 3 complete, where we cloned the n8n repository and hosted it on Docker. And with that, we can actually start with step 4, which is what we have been waiting for, where we'll be installing the MCP node. And let's just get to it without wasting any more time. And for that, I'm going to go back to this website here, right? We'll go to the left hand side of the screen and click on this 3-dotted button here, right beside our name. And from here, we can go to settings, and I'll just leave without saving, doesn't really matter, right? And inside here, you can see this thing called community nodes, and that's what we're going to be clicking on right now. And with that, this page appears. And from here, what we're going to do is we're going to click on install a community node, and we have to include a package name, right? To find the package name for the MCP server, what we're going to do is we're going to click on this thing here called browse, which is going to take us to npm, which hosts all sorts of packages. And here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type MCP, and this should find us the node that we are looking for. And there it is. You can see it's the first one in the list. It has 14,000 downloads, so it's really popular in the community, right? I'm going to click on n8n nodes MCP, and this is going to take us into this package. And the only thing we need here actually is the name of this package, okay? And I'm going to copy it and go back to our app, and then paste it where it's asking for the npm package name. Once we do that, we have to click on this to specify that we understand the risks of installing unverified code from a public source. I just wanted to read that out loud so you guys know, right? And the reason to this is because when you install community nodes, obviously you know, but just in case, you can be using libraries created by anybody else, right? And the next thing you know, your whole node is out on the internet, so be careful, guys. Anyway, I'm going to continue with installing by clicking on this install button here. And when we do that, the application is going to download this package for us, and after that, we'll have MCP within n8n, and after that we can start using it. All right guys, the download is complete. As you can see, that's how easy it is to get access to the MCP server node once you have n8n running locally. And with that, we are done with step 4, and we can proceed with step 5, where we'll actually start using these nodes. So let's get to it. Hey guys, just a quick interjection. So I have a Skool community called Business AI Alliance, which is completely free. We are at 1.7k members, and currently we are focused on, but not just limited to, n8n. This community honestly have amazing people who also share their own builds. So you can come over here and try them out and get inspired. I also share the resources I show in my videos, so feel free to join, guys. I'll see you inside. With that, let's continue with the video. So I'm just gonna go back to the application again, and then from here, go back from settings and go back to our workflow canvas, right? I'm gonna remove this and add an agent node, okay? So that we can start using them with agents. And by the way, you don't necessarily have to use MCP with agents, right? Because the idea of MCP is not that you can only use it with agents, but it's streamlining the process of connecting to APIs or external services. And in this case, you can create a standard workflow that connects to these MCP servers. Like for instance, you can create a workflow that connects to a scraping MCP server like Firecrawl, and you can just pass in the input parameters yourself, which is actually available within this node itself. It has a standalone MCP client tool, right? So we don't actually even have to use it as an agent tool, but like I said, integrated into our standard workflow. But for now, I'm just going to show it as an example using AI agents, right? I'm just going to remove this node here, and I want to connect our agent to a chat model. In this case, I'm just going to go with OpenAI, right? Let me just go set up the credential as we do with the cloud version, and I'll be back. All right, guys, I created an API key and I pasted it in this field here. Now I'm going to click on save. With that, I have the credential for OpenAI ready. I'm just going to go ahead and close this. And now we have our agent with OpenAI as the chat model. Now what we need is to connect to these MCP tools, right? Let's go ahead and look for MCP client tool. I'm going to click on that. And within this, what we need is we need to also select credential. Let's take a look at how it looks like. Here, when we click on create new credential, this is the screen that we see. And as you notice, this is completely different from what we have with other kind of credentials that we connect to when we try to use OpenAI, Google, or whatever, right? So let's actually take a look how we can set this one up. And for this, I'm going to go to MCP's official GitHub repository so that we can see the featured MCP servers. So I'm just going to go to GitHub again, paste this link there. Okay, now we are in their repository. When we scroll down, we can see reference servers, right? These servers aim to demonstrate MCP features and the TypeScript Python SDKs. And then we have official integrations, which is super cool. Basically, platforms themselves that provide services are building their own MCP servers. And here it says official integrations are maintained by companies building production ready MCP servers for their platforms, right? And we can see some pretty cool names here that already have this set up for their platform, and like things like Firecrawl, which is actually what we're going to be using as one of the examples, right? And then all these things here, and this is really exciting. Honestly, it's just going to make it so much easier to connect to their services through tools like n8n. And then we have community servers. This is a growing set of community developed and maintained servers, demonstrates various applications of MCP across different domains, and as its name implies, these are built by the community, right? We have all sorts of MCP servers here. And in particular, what I want to use from here is one called Compass, right? We can use this MCP server to find MCP servers that are relevant to us. And we're actually going to be using this now to ask it for best scraping MCP servers, and it hopefully will return to us Firecrawl like the one we have here, okay? So for this, I'm going to go back down and search for Compass once again. And I'm going to go into it, which by the way is a GitHub repository on its own, right? And let's scroll down all the way to the part where it provides us with the commands we need. Okay, so this is the part that we are interested in. And when we look at our application, we can see this command field and then this arguments field and environment fields, right? And when we look at this MCP server configuration object, we have a command field, and the command field says npx. Let's copy that and put that into this field here. And then this argument fields here is this args fields here, which is the same thing, it's just the short form of arguments, right? And this is an array object, okay? And as you can see, we have two elements within them. And so what we'll have to do is we'll copy each of these elements, copy this one, for instance, and then paste it here, and then copy this one as well, and then paste it into the arguments, and leaving a space between each element in the array, right? In this case, by the way, we don't have anything for the environment variables as it's not mentioned, right? So we'll just leave this as empty. And if you notice here, it says connect using command line stdio, standard input output, or server sent events. Server sent events is basically for remotely hosted MCP servers, but in our case, we're going to go with standard input output as we're going to be locally hosting it by using this command here, which belongs to npm. Now I'm just going to go ahead and actually name this. I'm going to call this MCP Compass, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and save it. Once I do that, I have the credential for this MCP client ready, and now we can start using it. All right. And what I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and set the operation. We can see here we have multiple types of operations, but right now the ones that are relevant to us and relevant to most MCP servers are list tools, which is what we're going to use in order to tell our agent what tools are available within a particular MCP server, right? And the other one is called execute tool, which is what the agent is going to use to execute a particular tool within that MCP server by referring to the tools returned by this list tools tool, right? So I'm just going to select on list tools for this, which was already set by default, right? And then let's set a name for this node here. I'm going to call it compass list or list compass tools, okay? And with this, what we have is we already have one part of the equation where now we know what tools is available within the Compass MCP server. And now we need to add the execution part, and I'm going to do that. Again, search for MCP, and this time select execute tool, right? And for the tool name, we are going to leave it up to the AI to decide by, again, referring to the tools returned by the list tools tool, right? And then tools parameter, again, I'm going to leave it up to the AI, but this time we have a better way to just click on this to actually do that. And I want to name this and call it execute compass tool. All right. And then I'm going to rename it and close it. And now we actually have this MCP server or client ready to use, and we can start telling our agent to actually look for a relevant MCP server, in this case for scraping websites, right? Let's actually do that. I'm gonna tell it to, could you please find me the best MCP MCP server for scraping websites. Okay, let's see what it does. All right, so it should automatically understand that it should call list compass tools first, right? But it wouldn't hurt if, for example, we could have added manual tool description as well, especially in a bigger, more sophisticated system that includes multiple MCP tools. But in this case, it was simply able to infer from it. And I'm sure there is a description within this tool itself that tells the agent. So it's pretty much there already, right? So it listed for the tools, look for the tools that are available within the Compass, right? And within the MCP server for Compass. And we can see that there is only one available in here called, what was it? Recommend MCP Servers. Anyway, guys, so then it hit the execute Compass tool, which returned to us exactly what we wanted. And actually Firecrawl came as the first one in the list. And when we actually click on this GitHub URL here, it's probably going to take us to the same exact GitHub repository that Firecrawl has, which is absolutely cool, right? So if you want to use MCP servers and want to find ones that are relevant for you, you can actually just use this MCP server here, which is really fantastic. But anyway, now that we got the MCP server that we want to use, let's go to its GitHub repository once again and look at its configuration object. Right here, this time we see again a comment that says npx. Let's actually set this one up as well. I'm going to click on tool, and then I'm going to select look for MCP client tool again, right? And then let's create a new credential, and here I'm going to paste in the command. Oops, I'm just going to copy this one here again. It's npx, and then when we look at arguments, we have -y once again, and then firecrawl -mcp. I'm going to add a space, right? And then add the second argument in it. And this time, when we look at the environment, which is represented by env in this case, we see that we need to pass in an API key called Firecrawl API key. And to do this, what we'll have to do is obviously we'll need to have an account in Firecrawl, right? And then we'll have to get an API key from there and then attach it to it. And the way we'll do it is like this. So I'll go back to my workflow, right? Or to my n8n, and then I'm gonna toggle the expression mode here, and then so that we can see the API key, right? And now I'll just go grab my Firecrawl key and get back to you guys real quick. All right, now I'm back with the API key and I'm gonna paste it here. So the format is like this: Firecrawl underscore API underscore key equals to the API key that's provided by the platform we use, right? Obviously this key here is also going to be different, or this label here is going to be different based on the MCP servers, and that is going to be determined by, which one is this? By the configuration object that is provided to us by that MCP server. So you just have to follow it, right? In this case, this was the key, so we copied this one, added it into the environments field, and then set it to the API key using this equal sign here. And with this, guys, we are now able to connect to Firecrawl's MCP server. And so I'm just going to click on save. Let me actually rename this as well, right? Firecrawl. And then I'm going to save it. Now I'm going to close it, and I'm just going to start with list tools, and I'm going to rename this tool and call it Firecrawl, or list Firecrawl tools. Okay, like that. And then I'm going to add the other part of the equation again. I'm going to add the execute tool part and select that operation, execute tool. And I want to also rename this, but before that, let's again set this part here, call it from AI, right? And I'll say tool name. And when we go down here, we have the tool parameters, and I'm again just going to click on this to let the model define this parameter. Okay, and that's what I did. And let me rename it now: execute Firecrawl tool. And with that, we are also connected to Firecrawl's MCP server, and we are able to actually use it now. So let's actually try it out. Let me just select a page to scrape. Maybe this, I'll just copy the link and I will say, please scrape this website. Okay, let's see if it's gonna be able to actually infer. And it didn't, right? And this is because we didn't provide it with any information on how to use it, or like at least telling it the order to use it. But it's, yeah, now it's understanding its mistake. It hit the list Firecrawl tools this time, and I'm expecting it to actually then use that information and use execute Firecrawl tool. This time, let's see what happens. Which, by the way, we can solve by adding a manual description for each of these tools, right? So we can tell it like, before using execute Fire tool, make sure to use the list Firecrawl tools, and only then use this. And these kind of things would prevent it from making these kind of mistakes. And yeah, guys, so we got the response, and it was able to scrape the website for us, right? This is the correct website, but it did with a slight mistake or error in the process at first, right? Let's actually try to modify this a bit by telling it what to do before calling each tool. Okay, let's actually close this, since this does not even have memory anyway, right? I didn't attach any memory to our agent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to execute Firecrawl and add a manual description. Use MCP client. I'll leave this just in case it's necessary, and I'll say always use the list Firecrawl tools to before using this. Okay, and then I'm gonna save it, and I'm gonna ask it the same thing this time, and I'll tell it, could you please find me, not this, but please scrape this website, and that's it. Yeah, I'm gonna repeat this, paste it again, and let's see what happens this time. Again, we don't have any kind of memory, so it's not gonna remember the previous conversation that we had, but that simple thing, as you can see, already fixed our problem. And this should be consistent since the instruction is there, right? And now we're trying the same thing again, and this should work. All right, guys, so we got the response from the Firecrawl tool, and now it's processing that response, and finally it provides us again with the information on the website, as you can see, right? And with that, guys, this is basically it. This is how you can connect MCP to your n8n instance. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and that this video was helpful in you getting n8n set up locally and get access to the MCP server node. And yeah, guys, if you did enjoy, please leave a like or even a comment under the video, as these engagements go a really long way in getting my video out to more people. But yeah, with that said, guys, have a great day. Take care.